She thought she could outsmart me. She thought I was too slow, too simple. But she never saw the invoices, never questioned the company name. And by the time she did, the system was already collapsing.
My name is Alan Price. I'm 47 years old, and until last year, I'd never missed a day of work in my life. I was a stonemason, real stone, not those fake veneers they glue to the sides of California homes. I laid walkways, built fire pits, restored colonial chimneys by hand. Work you could feel in your back the next morning. I liked it that way. Clean, quiet, predictable. I met Emily at a roadside diner outside Pittsburgh in 2017. She was new in town, or that's what she told me. Had just taken a job at the county's building department. Blonde, sharp smile, voice like she was born with secrets. I was divorced, no kids, no mess. Just me, my house, my business. She made a mess real fast. Within 6 months, she'd moved into my place. Said it didn't feel like a home without someone who matched the curtains. I didn't know what the hell that meant, but I liked having someone there. The way she'd leave coffee in a thermos on the truck hood before I left. The way she said we when talking about weekends. 2 years in, I handed her access to everything. Bank accounts, car insurance, health. Hell, even my Safeco login for the truck. She said she'd handle it better. You're too focused on work, she'd laugh. Let me carry some weight. I didn't know she was already unloading me behind my back. I found out on a Tuesday. Not from a message. Not a phone call. But a notice from the bank. Someone had withdrawn $82,400 from the joint savings account. The one I never touched. The one I kept for bad years if I broke a hip or smashed my hand with a sledge. It was supposed to be my emergency rope. The withdrawal came from a certified cashier's check made out to Emily Jordan Stratton. I stared at that name for 10 minutes. Because the woman sleeping in my house, the one who called herself Emily Claire, had never once mentioned that middle name. I played it calm that night. Didn't ask. Didn't mention the bank. Just watched her while she cooked. She moved like nothing had changed. But now I saw it, the little things. The new earrings. The quiet text she checked and tucked away. The way she didn't notice when I stared too long. I waited until she left for her supposed city permit training 2 days later. Then I checked my truck's GPS. Not a government building. A suburban condo. 45 minutes outside of town. When I got there, I didn't knock. I parked 2 houses down. Waited. 3 hours later, she walked out in a dress I didn't recognize. With another man. Beard, business casual, Range Rover keys. I didn't follow. I already knew everything I needed. That night, when she got home, she found flowers on the table. Her favorite kind. Cream roses. A card that said, "For every moment you made me believe you were mine." She smiled. Kissed me. Acted like the world hadn't cracked. I kissed her back. Held it longer. Because revenge only works when it starts with silence. I spent the next week pretending I didn't know anything. Still brought her coffee, still listened to her talk about work, still let her sleep with her back to me like she always did when she was hiding something. But I didn't speak much. Not because I was scared. Because I was thinking. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to ask her why. No. That would give her power again. And she didn't deserve that. I was going to do something she'd never expect from the man who laid stone for a living and still paid bills at the post office. I was going to design a lie better than hers. First step, I needed a name. Not hers. Mine. I filed a DBA doing business as under APJ Design and Build listed out of state, West Virginia. A real LLC with a small website I paid someone $300 to make. The kind of business that could easily pass for a subcontractor or supplier. Second step, I pulled cash from a private account Emily didn't know existed. My father's accident settlement from '97. I never touched it. But this wasn't about starting over. This was about ending something the right way. While Emily smiled and planned our autumn retreat, I tracked her. The guy she'd been with? His name was Robert Hayes. Commercial real estate. Married. 2 kids. His wife ran a dental office. His LinkedIn was as fake as her middle name. They weren't in love. I don't even think they liked each other. But they shared something worse, opportunity. Turns out Emily had been leaking internal project data from the county office, bids, construction deadlines, zoning changes. And Robert was flipping properties using that information before it became public. Classic insider real estate fraud. A few $1,000s here and there, maybe 50 grand a flip. No red flags. No headlines. But over 3 years? They'd stacked close to $1.2 million. And a third of that came from my money. She used my stability, my name, my presence to stay credible. I was the boring rock that gave her chaos a safe shadow. I was done being that rock. I started sending small invoices from my fake company to one of Robert's holding firm's basic stuff. Material transport. Security installation. Tiny charges well under audit thresholds. He paid them. And just like that, I became part of their ecosystem. A ghost vendor in their quiet, dirty machine. 3 months passed. Emily never suspected. But now I wasn't just a man she was cheating on. I was her co-conspirator. And the moment they started relying on my phantom business to move money between projects, that's when I knew I'd built the pressure point. All that was left was when to press it. Emily started to unravel slowly. Not publicly, she was too polished for that, but at home, it crept out. She'd double-check the doors were locked, ask me twice if I'd seen anyone near her car. One morning, she spent 15 minutes searching for a scarf she hadn't worn in months. Another time, I caught her staring at the security camera footage like it was a horror film. I hadn't touched anything. But guilt? Guilt makes ghosts out of shadows. What I had done was introduce errors into their system. At first, it was one mistyped invoice, $10,500 instead of $1,050. Then it was a shipment logged from an address that didn't exist. Then it was an email chain I accidentally forwarded to a zoning clerk with a habit of printing things he shouldn't see. Nothing illegal. Just enough noise to get them looking in the wrong direction. Emily started keeping her phone face down more often. She left her laptop in the car one night and ran out to get it in the middle of a storm. She'd never cared about data before. Now it was her lifeline. Robert, meanwhile, got bold. Arrogant men always do. He filed a permit request under a shell company with Emily's digital signature attached. One problem, he used a project code I just invented and sent through a fake APJ invoice. They were laundering fraudulent activity through a company I owned. That's when I called in the anonymous tip. I didn't go to the police. Too early. Instead, I contacted a freelance investigative journalist named Tyler Reese. Young guy. Hungry. I'd seen his name on a local story about misused public funds. He wasn't famous, but he was smart enough to know that small-town corruption sells when you package it right. I gave him everything, the invoices, the permit logs, the shell companies, Emily's office sign-in history. I left out my name but made sure one specific breadcrumb led back to APJ Design and Build.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing experience, but we really need your support, namely a subscription to the channel, which can make it possible to hire a professional voice actor and make the best content for you.
Enough to raise questions. Not enough to start a war. Yet, at home, Emily was nervous. She started drinking wine at lunch. Started checking my schedule just to sync up. I told her I'd been busy lining up a new contract. She didn't ask questions, but I could see it. The shift. The woman who used to laugh with her mouth full now answered in half sentences. She stopped touching me in the kitchen. She started waking up before me. She was trying to read my rhythms because something felt wrong. But the truth was, I wasn't just one step ahead. I was in her rearview mirror waving. Then the article dropped. Zoning loopholes and shadow firms are county officials in bed with real estate developers? Her name wasn't in it, but her office was. And Robert's holding company. And the APJ invoice. The city started poking. The next day, I found her in the garage sitting in the passenger seat of her car with the door open. Silent. Pale. Like someone who just realized their parachute might be packed with silverware. I didn't ask. I just said, "You okay?" She said, "I think someone's watching us." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "That's how you know you matter." The article didn't make headlines, but it did its job. A few quiet audits were opened. County zoning office froze 3 permits. And Robert Hayes? He started sweating. The man who once parked his Range Rover at the front of every board meeting started sending interns in his place. I watched his name vanish from new filings, replaced by initials and LLCs I didn't recognize. That's when I knew the real fear had kicked in. But Emily, she handled it differently. She tried to reassert control. She started coming home earlier, cooking more, asking how I was sleeping. There was one night, late October, when she actually cried over dinner. Said she was sorry she'd been distant, that things had been stressful at work. I nodded, played the role, told her everything would be fine. And then, after she went to bed, I submitted a second anonymous tip, this time with full documents attached. Permit logs, altered blueprints, a memo with her signature approving a zoning change that benefited a property Robert had sold just weeks prior. That memo? I'd written it myself in the exact formatting she used on real ones. Because when you forge something fake to match the truth, even lies become weapons. 3 days later, Emily got called into a compliance review. She came home pale again, but this time there were no tears. Just silence. She knew. She knew she was in deep. And Robert? I imagine he knew too, because his lawyer filed a claim against one of their shell firms alleging unauthorized transactions linked to county decisions. It was classic damage control, throw the company to the wolves, claim ignorance, walk away. But I wasn't done. That's when I took the final step. I flipped the ownership of APJ Design and Build. Used my lawyer to transfer it legally to Robert's wife. She had no idea it existed. But now, on paper, she owned the company that processed every suspicious invoice the city had flagged. Every dirty check. Every dime that came through Emily's signature. I wanted them all to turn on each other. And I wanted them to do it in court. Emily found out when she came home and saw the certified letter from the Secretary of State's office on the kitchen table. She opened it in front of me. Read it. Blinked. She asked me, "What is this?" I said, "Looks like you've been busy," and walked out the back door. The next day, I left town. Not forever. Just long enough to be unreachable. No texts. No calls. No explanations. Because revenge doesn't need applause. It just needs to land. And in a few days, it would hit like an iron beam. I stayed in a cheap cabin 3 hours north, near Lake Erie. No internet. No cell towers. Just the sound of pine needles cracking under my boots and the rattle of wind on old windows. While I chopped firewood and cooked over gas, the rest of their world collapsed. It started with the audit expansion. Turns out, once one invoice looks off, the city starts looking at them all. The internal compliance team called for a federal review. Too many out-of-state transfers. Too many shell companies popping up around zoning approvals. And suddenly, APJ Design and Build wasn't just a name, it was evidence. Robert's wife was served a notice to appear for a preliminary hearing. She had no idea why. I'd made sure of that. And just like that, the fighting began. Robert claimed Emily ran the filings. Emily said Robert used her login. Robert's wife filed for divorce. Emily hired a criminal attorney. Robert's office was raided. Emily's email was subpoenaed. All the trust they built, all the whispered late-night calls, all the meals they shared in that condo, turned to poison. Every name they used to protect themselves, turned to leverage. I came home 2 weeks later. The first thing I noticed was Emily's car was gone. The second was the envelope on the kitchen table. Inside were 2 things, a house key and a note. Just 5 words. You were watching the whole time. She wasn't wrong. But she wasn't right either. I wasn't watching. I was waiting. The DA's office issued its first set of charges that same week: wire fraud, obstruction, falsification of public records. Robert was hit with 7 counts. Emily got 5. But the best part? The charges weren't even the end. Because I triggered one more thing, a small claim filed through the state licensing board. It alleged that Emily used her public role to authorize permits benefiting a company she had personal financial interest in. The company? APJ Design and Build, which she'd been authorizing payments to without ever knowing who owned it in the first place. That licensing violation meant she couldn't work in public service again. No plea bargain would erase that. No time served would undo it. She wasn't just losing her job. She was losing her credibility. Forever. I didn't go to her arraignment. Didn't show up when the press snapped photos of her exiting the courthouse in sunglasses, hand-shielding her face like some B-list celebrity caught in scandal. But I did read every line of the court summary. And when I saw the words conflicting testimony from co-defendants, I smiled. Because they hadn't just turned on each other. They destroyed each other. And I didn't have to lift a finger. The case didn't go to trial. Of course it didn't. People like Robert and Emily don't want truth on record. They want settlement, silence, and sealed files. She pled down to 2 felony counts, malfeasance in public office and unauthorized enrichment. Robert took a deal too, flipping on the LLC structure and pushing blame in every direction but his own. I followed it all from a distance. Emily got 18 months probation, community service, and was barred from working in any public sector role again. No jail, no cuffs. Just the slow humiliation of being ordinary again. No more high heels at conferences. No more glossy invites. No more small-town status built on whispers and lies. Robert's divorce went through before sentencing. His ex-wife got the house, the kids, and thanks to her name on a business she didn't even understand, 3 years of IRS audits. She never knew it, but I made her a weapon. And she swung clean. A month after the plea, Emily called. I didn't answer. She called twice more. Then she texted. I know what you did. You planned it. You set it all up. I left her on read for 2 days. Then I responded. You set it up. I just made sure you tripped over it. She never replied. By winter, I'd sold the house. Too many memories. Too much rot in the walls. I moved upstate. Smaller town. Rented a duplex. Took contract work. Cash jobs. Stayed off the radar. Not hiding, just living in the peace that comes after a storm no one knew you caused. Some nights I think about her. Not in the way I used to. Not like someone I miss. More like an old scar I forget is there until the skin pulls just right. There was one final thing. Before I left, I dropped off a package. No name. No return address. Just a manila envelope slid into the mailbox of the county zoning office. Inside? A printed photo. Emily. At a private lunch with Robert 2 years ago. Her hand on his wrist. A printed check stub made out to APJ Design and Build. A sticky note on top that said, from a taxpayer who paid for your affair. People talk a lot about forgiveness. About closure. Let me tell you something. Closure is for doors, not for people who betray you. You don't forgive someone who robs you blind and calls it love. You just take everything they never expected to lose. Then walk away without giving them the satisfaction of watching you look back.
What do you think of the story? Write in the comments.